The massive Imperial vessel appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Its sleek, metallic surface reflected the sun's rays as it positioned itself above the United Nations headquarters in New York. Attention, inhabitants of Sol 3. We are representatives of the Galactic Empire, the supreme governing body of civilized space. Prepare to receive our delegation. The message boomed across every communication device on Earth, translated perfectly into all major languages. Panic swept through governments worldwide as military forces went on high alert. Within hours, a smaller craft descended through the atmosphere, landing on the hastily cleared grounds of the UN Plaza. A delegation of world leaders assembled to greet whatever emerged from the alien ship. The vessel's doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing beings of various forms, some tall and slender with iridescent skin, others squat with multiple limbs. Leading them was an imposing figure with deep blue skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. "I am Lord Krath, Imperial Ambassador First Class," the blue-skinned alien announced, not bothering to bow or show any sign of respect. "We have come to evaluate your species for potential inclusion in the Galactic Empire." President Rob Clark of the United States stepped forward. "We welcome you to Earth and look forward to peaceful relations." Lord Krath's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "How quaint. Your species is still organized by geographical boundaries. Primitive, but not unexpected for your development stage." Behind President Clark, Admiral John Wilson of the Global Defense Force clenched his jaw but remained silent. Dr. Lisa Reed, Earth's leading physicist, took careful notes on her tablet. "The Empire has encountered many species at your level," Lord Krath continued, gesturing dismissively. "Some prove worthy of ascension to our ranks. Others require guidance as protectorates." "And how is that determination made?" asked Dr. Reed, her voice steady despite the tension. Lord Krath turned his galaxy eyes toward her. "Through challenges, of course. Tests of your scientific knowledge, military capability, cultural significance, and political unity." A tall, thin alien with 6 fingers on each hand stepped forward. "Our analysis suggests humans will fail most, if not all, challenges. Your technology is rudimentary. Your scientific understanding is flawed. Your military capabilities are laughable." Admiral Wilson's face reddened. "Perhaps you shouldn't judge what you don't fully understand." "We understand perfectly," Lord Krath replied. "We have observed your broadcasts, studied your internet. You spend more time fighting each other than advancing. Yet here we stand," President Clark said calmly, "ready to face your challenges." The Imperial delegation exchanged looks that seemed amused. "Very well," Lord Krath announced. "You have 1 planetary rotation to assemble your finest minds and warriors. The challenges begin tomorrow." As the aliens returned to their ship, Admiral Wilson gathered with Dr. Reed and President Clark. "They're testing us like lab rats," Wilson growled. Dr. Reed nodded. "But they've made a critical mistake. They think they know us from our media and internet." "They see only what they expect to see," President Clark agreed. "Let's use that." Within hours, Earth's greatest scientists, military strategists, artists, and diplomats were summoned to New York. In a secure underground facility beneath the UN building, they prepared for the Imperial challenges. Dr. Reed reviewed alien technology scans, finding patterns and weaknesses. Admiral Wilson studied the Imperial ship's movements, noting their rigid formations and predictable tactics. Cultural experts analyzed the aliens' body language and speech patterns, identifying hierarchies and potential divisions. "They expect us to be primitive," Dr. Reed told the assembled human team that night. "They expect us to be divided and easily manipulated." Admiral Wilson smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. "Then let's show them just how wrong they are." The Imperial testing chamber gleamed with technology unknown to human science. Holographic displays floated in midair, showing complex equations and diagrams that shifted and rotated. Lord Krath stood at the center, surrounded by alien scientists with instruments attached to their limbs. The first challenge tests your species' scientific understanding, Lord Krath announced as Dr. Reed led her team of Earth's brightest minds into the chamber. These are basic problems that Empire children solve in their early education cycles. Dr. Reed smiled politely. We're eager to learn. A tall, thin alien with bulging eyes stepped forward. I am Chief Scientist Mox. I have studied primitive worlds for 300 years. Your species will find these problems challenging. The first hologram expanded, showing a complex energy conversion equation. Convert this into a working model, Mox instructed. You have 2 hours. Dr. Reed glanced at the equation, then at her team. Without a word, they moved to separate stations and began working. Dr. Tom, a quantum physicist, noticed something immediately. This equation assumes a 3-dimensional energy transfer, he whispered to Dr. Reed. But they've made no allowance for quantum uncertainty. Dr. Reed nodded. They're testing us on outdated science. Keep going. As the human scientists worked, the Imperial observers watched with growing confusion. Instead of struggling, the humans were discussing, debating, and quickly solving problems that should have taken days. After only 40 minutes, Dr. Reed approached the central platform. We've completed the first task. Mox blinked his bulging eyes rapidly. Impossible. See for yourself, Dr. Reed said, uploading their solution to the holographic display. The solution appeared, but with modifications and notes. Dr. Reed had not only solved the problem but improved the equation by incorporating quantum variables that the Empire had overlooked. Lord Kraft frowned. You've tampered with the problem. No, Dr. Reed explained calmly. We corrected an inefficiency in your model. The original fails to account for subatomic interactions that would reduce energy output by approximately 23%. Murmurs spread among the Imperial scientists. Mox angrily brought up the next challenge, a theoretical star mapping problem designed to confuse species who hadn't mastered faster-than-light travel. Dr. Alex, an astrophysicist, pointed to the display. This star configuration doesn't exist. Of course it does, Mox snapped. It's from the Andromeda sector. No, Dr. Alex insisted, pulling up Earth astronomical data on his tablet. These stars' spectral signatures are inconsistent with their purported mass. This is a theoretical model, not reality. The Imperial scientists shifted uncomfortably as the humans systematically worked through each challenge, finding errors and improvements in supposedly perfect Imperial science. By the final test, a complex biological simulation, the Imperial mood had darkened considerably. The humans not only completed it, but Dr. Kim, a geneticist, identified a flaw in the Empire's understanding of DNA analogs. Your model treats genetic drift as linear, she explained. But our research shows drift follows quantum probability patterns, not linear progression. Lord Kraft's galaxy eyes narrowed. Enough. The scientific challenge is complete. As the human team gathered their equipment, Dr. Reed approached Lord Kraft. We appreciate the opportunity to exchange scientific knowledge. Perhaps we could share our research on quantum genetics. It might help your medical treatments for several Imperial species. Lord Kraft stared at her for a long moment. That won't be necessary. He turned away sharply, whispering to Mox, increased difficulty for the military challenge. These humans are more advanced than we anticipated. Dr. Reed smiled slightly as she led her team out. The Imperial observers didn't realize she understood their language perfectly. Another fact the Empire had failed to discover about humanity. Admiral Wilson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, Earth's newest aircraft carrier. Around him, the best military minds from every nation watched as Imperial ships positioned themselves in Earth's orbit. The holographic display showed 5 Imperial cruisers, each larger than anything humans had built. The military challenge is simple. General Draz's voice boomed over the communication system. The alien commander had green-scaled skin and sharp teeth that flashed when he spoke. We will simulate a standard invasion sequence. Your forces will attempt to defend your planet. Admiral Wilson nodded to his team. Standard formation, everyone, just like we practiced. The Imperial ships began their approach, moving in a perfect V formation toward Earth's atmosphere. Their weapons systems powered up, showing as bright spots on the human radar. "Look at that rigid formation," Captain Rodriguez whispered. "No variation at all." Admiral Wilson smiled slightly. "They fight by the book. Let's throw away the book." As the Imperial ships entered strike range, the human forces scattered in what appeared to be panic. Small fighter jets broke formation, submarines dived to random depths, and ground forces retreated in disorderly patterns. General Draz laughed, his voice echoing through the command center. "As expected, your forces break at the first sign of superior technology." But Admiral Wilson wasn't worried. The chaotic movements were entirely planned. "Execute Operation Mosquito," he ordered calmly. Suddenly, the small, scattered human forces began attacking from unpredictable angles. Fighter jets targeted the same weak points on Imperial shields, focusing fire in a way the aliens had never encountered. Submarines launched dummy missiles that confused Imperial sensors. On the holographic display, 2 Imperial cruisers showed damage warnings. "Impossible," General Draz shouted. "How are your primitive weapons penetrating our shields?" Admiral Wilson didn't respond. He didn't need to explain that humans had analyzed the Imperial shield frequencies during first contact and found a resonance pattern that could be disrupted by synchronized attacks. The Imperial ships regrouped and tried a new formation. Their weapons fired at predicted human positions, but found nothing. "Where are your forces?" demanded General Draz. "Everywhere and nowhere," Admiral Wilson replied. On the display, hundreds of tiny signals appeared around the Imperial ships, decoys mixed with real fighters, confusing the alien targeting systems. The human forces were using guerrilla tactics in space, striking quickly and vanishing before the Empire could respond. Lieutenant Park approached Admiral Wilson with a tablet. "Sir, we've cracked their communication encryption." Wilson took the tablet and scanned it. "Perfect." He pressed a button, and suddenly Imperial communications filled the human command center. "Cannot target them properly. Formation is breaking. Request new tactical directive." General Draz's voice cut through the chatter. "Maintain discipline. These are primitives." Admiral Wilson spoke into his communication system. "This simulation is quite educational, General Draz. By the way, your ship's port shield generator has a fluctuation cycle of exactly 3.7 seconds. In a real battle, that's where I would focus our attack." Silence fell across all channels. Then the holographic display showed the Imperial ships pulling back to high orbit. "The military exercise is concluded," General Draz announced, his voice tight with anger. As the simulation ended, Admiral Wilson gathered his team. They expected us to fight conventionally, to match their formations and firepower. They never considered we might fight differently. Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Their tactics haven't changed in centuries. Why would they? They've never needed to adapt." "Humans have always adapted," Admiral Wilson said, looking at the retreating Imperial ships. "We fought each other for thousands of years. We know every trick, every strategy, every dirty tactic." He smiled grimly. "And we just taught the Empire their first lesson in warfare innovation in centuries." On the Imperial command ship, General Draz smashed his fist into a control panel. "These humans," he growled to Lord Krath, "fight like no species we've ever encountered." "Yes," Lord Krath replied coldly. "Increased difficulty for the cultural challenge. These humans must be contained." The Grand Hall aboard the Imperial flagship had been transformed into a museum-like space. Alien artifacts from 1,000 worlds lined the walls. Sculptures that moved by themselves, paintings that changed colors with the viewer's emotions, and music devices that played sounds impossible for human ears to fully comprehend. Professor Mike stood before the Imperial Cultural Committee, a diverse group of aliens whose job was to determine if humanity had any cultural value worth preserving. Their leader, Lady Thrix, a tall being with silver skin and flowing robes, looked down at him with thinly veiled contempt. "We have reviewed your planet's cultural offerings," Lady Thrix announced. "Your art is primitive, your music simplistic, and your literature predictable. Nevertheless, we offer you the opportunity to present your case." Professor Mike smiled politely. Behind him stood Earth's delegation: musicians, artists, chefs, writers, historians, and philosophers from every corner of the planet. "We thank you for this opportunity," he said. "We'll begin with music, if you don't mind." A small woman stepped forward with a simple violin. The imperial representatives leaned back, clearly expecting to be unimpressed. She raised her bow and began to play Vax Chakan. The pure, emotional notes filled the space. Several aliens leaned forward, their expressions changing. One with sensitive hearing membranes began to tremble. "This composition is hundreds of years old," Professor Mike explained as the violinist continued. "Created by a human who never left his small region of Earth, never saw other worlds, yet somehow captured the universal experience of loss and hope." When the piece ended, the room remained silent for several seconds. Lady Thrix cleared her throat. "Interesting, but simple compared to our 40-tone harmonic systems." "Perhaps," Professor Mike agreed. "But next, we'd like to share our literature." A tall man stepped forward and began reciting poetry. First Shakespeare, then Pablo Neruda, then Rumi, each in their original language, but with translation devices providing meaning to the aliens. "Your species speaks different languages?" an imperial linguist asked, suddenly interested. "Within the same planet. Over 7,000 distinct languages," Professor Mike confirmed, "each with its own poetry, stories, and expressions impossible to perfectly translate." The imperial representatives whispered among themselves. Next came food. Simple dishes from around the world. The aliens reluctantly sampled them, then returned for seconds and thirds. A spicy Thai curry caused one imperial representative's skin to change color in apparent delight. "Your species uses chemical irritants as pleasure enhancers?" Lady Thrix asked, sampling more curry. Professor Mike nodded. "Pain and pleasure are often connected in human culture." As the presentation continued, the imperial disdain slowly transformed into curiosity. When the human philosophers began discussing different ethical systems and religions from Earth, several imperial scholars joined the conversation, asking questions and debating points. "You have thousands of belief systems on one planet?" asked an alien with transparent skin showing swirling colors beneath. "And they coexist," another added. "Not always peacefully," Professor Mike admitted, "but we continue to try. Our diversity is our strength, not our weakness." The final presentation was Earth's history, stories of human resilience, innovation, and survival against overwhelming odds. Tales of people who sacrificed everything for ideals, of civilizations that rose from ashes, of art created during humanity's darkest moments. When it ended, the imperial hall was completely silent. Finally, Lady Thrix spoke. "We have reviewed thousands of species across the galaxy. Most have singular cultures, unified belief systems, and predictable artistic expressions." She paused, seemingly struggling with her next words. "Your planet contains more cultural diversity than entire sectors of our empire." Professor Mike smiled. "Humans have always been curious about different ways of thinking and living. We don't seek uniformity. We celebrate our differences." Lady Thrix made a gesture, and the Imperial Committee members huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. When they separated, Lady Thrix's silver face showed a new expression: respect. "The cultural challenge is complete," she announced. "We will need to reevaluate our initial assessment of human creative potential." As the human delegation was escorted out, Professor Mike overheard an Imperial scholar whisper to another, "If their culture is this diverse and rich, what else have we underestimated about them?" Ambassador Jane entered the Imperial negotiation chamber, with a calm smile that hid her concern. The circular room featured 7 separate tables, one for each major Earth power. Behind each table stood representatives from China, the United States, the European Union, Russia, India, Brazil, and the African Union. Lord Kraft sat on an elevated platform, looking down at the human delegations. 6 imperial diplomats flanked him, each holding data tablets. "Welcome to the political challenge," Lord Kraft announced. "The Empire must determine if your species can function cohesively within our galactic structure." Ambassador Jane nodded politely. "We're prepared to demonstrate Earth's political capabilities." Lord Kraft's lips curled into what might have been a smile. "Excellent. We have reviewed your planet's history of warfare, division, and competition. To simplify matters, we have prepared individual offers for each of your major powers." The imperial diplomats moved to separate tables, presenting each human delegation with different offers. Ambassador Jane watched carefully as the delegates reviewed the proposals. For China, exclusive access to imperial gravity technology, an imperial diplomat announced. "For the United States, advanced weapons systems," said another. "For Russia, control of 3 mineral-rich asteroids in your system." Each offer was designed to appeal to perceived national interests and to set Earth's nations against each other. Ambassador Jane caught the eye of her colleague from China, who gave a subtle nod. The plan they had prepared was now in motion. The Chinese representative stood first. "This is a generous offer. However, we must decline any technology not equally shared with all Earth nations." The imperial diplomats froze in confusion. The American representative stood next. "We also decline any military technology not available to all Earth defense forces." One by one, each human delegation rejected their exclusive offers. Lord Kraft leaned forward, galaxy eyes narrowing. "Perhaps you misunderstand. These technologies would give your nations significant advantages." "We understand perfectly," Ambassador Jane replied, stepping to the center of the room. "What Earth entered these challenges as one planet, not as separate nations." She pressed a button on her tablet, and a holographic document appeared in the center of the room. The Earth Unity Accord, signed by every nation on the planet just hours after the Imperial arrival. "Your species has fought each other for millennia," Lord Kraft said, visibly confused. "Our intelligence indicated easy exploitation of your political divisions." Ambassador Jane smiled. "Nothing unites humans like an outside threat or opportunity. We may argue amongst ourselves, but we stand together before the galaxy." The imperial diplomats huddled around Lord Kraft, whispering urgently. When they separated, Lord Kraft's expression had darkened. "Very well. If you refuse our generous individual offers, we will treat with Earth as a single entity. Unfortunately, as an undeveloped world, you qualify only for protectorate status, with limited trade rights and imperial oversight of your development." Ambassador Jane remained calm. "That's interesting. We've been reviewing imperial law, and according to Statute 7293, any world capable of independent interstellar communication qualifies for provisional member status, not protectorate status." Lord Kraft froze. "You have no interstellar capability." "Actually, we do." Ambassador Jane nodded to her Indian colleague, who displayed images on the main screen. "For the past week, Earth has been in communication with the Proxima Centauri colony and the Titan mining facilities, both technically outside your solar system." "Those are merely outposts," an imperial diplomat protested, "not true interstellar." And, Ambassador Jane continued, "We've received responses from 3 of your so-called protectorate worlds, all eager to establish direct relations with Earth, bypassing imperial oversight." The chamber fell completely silent. Lord Kraft's face darkened to deep purple. "How did you contact our protectorates?" he demanded. "The same way we've been monitoring your communications since you arrived," Ambassador Jane replied. "Your encryption is impressive, but relies on predictable quantum patterns." Lord Kraft stood abruptly. The political challenge is concluded. You will be informed of results." He swept from the room, Imperial diplomats scrambling behind him. As the humans gathered their materials, the Brazilian representative whispered to Ambassador Jane, "They thought they could divide and conquer us. A strategy as old as humanity," she replied, "and one we learned to recognize long ago." Captain Bill and his team of 6 stood before an ancient stone doorway carved into the side of a mountain on a distant moon. The structure predated the Empire itself, built by the mysterious founders who had established the Galactic civilization millions of years ago. Lord Craft's voice echoed from communication devices. "This is the trial of ascension. No new species has completed it in 12,000 years. It will test your physical capabilities, moral reasoning, and psychological resilience." Captain Bill turned to his team: a soldier, a scientist, a doctor, an engineer, a diplomat, and a philosopher, each chosen for their unique skills. "The rules are simple," Lord Craft continued. "Reach the center chamber and retrieve the Founder's key. You have 12 hours. Failure means automatic classification as a protectorate world." The massive stone doors slowly opened, revealing a dark passage descending into the mountain. "Good luck," Lord Craft said, not bothering to hide the satisfaction in his voice. "You'll need it." As the human team entered the ancient structure, hidden cameras transmitted everything back to the Imperial command ship where Lord Craft and his advisors watched. The gravity chamber broke the Centauri, one advisor noted. The moral maze drove the Plovians to madness. Lord Craft nodded. Humans won't even reach the third challenge. Inside the mountain, Captain Bill led his team down a spiraling passage that grew steeper with each step. Suddenly, the floor disappeared, plunging them into a vast chamber where gravity shifted unpredictably. "Gravity surges," shouted Dr. Anna, checking her instruments. "Changing every 7 seconds." Captain Bill watched the pattern. "Everyone link up. Match your movements to the shifts." The team formed a human chain, timing their movements with the gravity changes. Instead of fighting against the shifting forces, they used them to propel themselves across the chamber, reaching the far side in just 15 minutes. In the observation room, Imperial advisors shifted uncomfortably. "They adapted quickly," one admitted. The next chamber presented a series of ethical dilemmas projected as lifelike holograms. A child drowning, a building collapsing, impossible choices between saving few or many. "It's testing our moral frameworks," said Frank, the philosopher, looking for consistency and compassion. The team worked through each scenario, sometimes arguing but always reaching consensus, demonstrating both logical reasoning and emotional intelligence. Their responses are unexpected, an Imperial psychologist admitted. They value individual lives yet make difficult utilitarian choices when necessary. The third challenge was a maze that changed its configuration whenever the humans made progress. Designed to create frustration and hopelessness, it had broken the spirit of many species. "They'll give up soon," Lord Craft predicted. But the humans didn't give up. The engineer, Jim, noticed patterns in the wall movements. The soldier, Meg, developed a mapping system using equipment they carried. Working together, they methodically conquered the ever-changing maze. "Impossible," whispered an Imperial advisor. The final chamber held the greatest challenge, a crystalline structure containing the Founder's key. To retrieve it, one team member would need to remain behind, trapped forever. "A sacrifice is required," a voice echoed through the chamber. "One stays so others may continue." The human team fell silent, contemplating the cruel choice. Then Dr. Anna laughed. "No, that's not how physics works." She examined the crystal structure carefully. "Look at the light refraction. It's creating the illusion of a sealed chamber. There's no actual barrier." Captain Bill smiled. "They're trying to trick us into abandoning someone." Together, they carefully extracted the key without triggering the trap. As they held it up, the entire mountain structure began to hum. Ancient symbols on the walls began to glow. Jim translated them with his device. It says, "The worthy do not sacrifice others unnecessarily. The worthy question assumptions. The worthy find another way." A hidden door opened, revealing a direct path back to the entrance. On the Imperial ship, Lord Kraft stood in shocked silence as the humans emerged from the mountain, holding the Founder's key aloft. They completed all trials in under 6 hours, an advisor whispered. A new record. And they refused the false choice of sacrifice, another added, just like the Founders themselves would have. Lord Kraft's galaxy eyes narrowed. Check the trials for tampering. They must have cheated somehow. But deep down, he knew the truth. Humans hadn't just passed the trial of ascension. They had revealed its true purpose, hidden for millennia. To find species that questioned authority and valued both logic and compassion. The Empire had just encountered something they hadn't seen in thousands of years, a species worthy of joining the Founders. The Imperial Grand Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the massive space, all eyes fixed on the central platform, where Lord Kraft stood with the full Earth delegation. The human representatives, Admiral Wilson, Dr. Reed, Professor Mike, Ambassador Jane, and Captain Bill, stood tall despite being surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "The Grand Council will now hear the results of Earth's evaluation," announced the Imperial High Chancellor, an ancient being with translucent skin and eyes that had witnessed centuries of galactic history. Lord Kraft stepped forward, his blue skin now pale with strain. "High Chancellor, the humans have completed all challenges." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The High Chancellor leaned forward. "Your recommendation." Before Lord Kraft could answer, Ambassador Jane stepped forward. "If I may address the Council directly." The High Chancellor hesitated, then nodded. "Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Empire," Ambassador Jane began, her voice clear and confident. "We appreciate the thorough evaluation of our species. However, before you decide our status, there's something you should know." She nodded to Dr. Reed, who activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed detailed maps of Imperial territory, with red indicators spreading across them. These red areas mark Imperial worlds currently experiencing economic collapse, resource shortages, or open rebellion. Ambassador Jane explained. The Council erupted in shock and anger. "This is classified information." Lord Kraft shouted. "How did you?" "We've been monitoring Imperial communications since your arrival," Admiral Wilson explained calmly. "Your encryption was impressive, but relied on mathematical constants we surpassed decades ago." The High Chancellor raised a hand for silence. "What is the meaning of this display, humans?" Professor Mike stepped forward. "The Empire is in decline. Cultural stagnation, scientific dogma, military inflexibility, and political corruption have weakened you from within. For 3,000 years, you've conquered without innovating," Dr. Reed added. "You've ruled without adapting. Your empire is failing not because of external threats, but because it refuses to change." Captain Bill held up the Founder's key from the trial of ascension. "The Founders built this civilization on principles of growth and innovation, principles you've abandoned." The council chamber fell into uncomfortable silence as the truth of their words sank in. "You come before us asking for membership," the High Chancellor finally said, "yet you insult us." Ambassador Jane smiled. "Not an insult, an offer." She activated another holographic display, showing Earth's scientific, cultural, and social innovations. "Humanity doesn't wish to join a dying empire as subjects," she explained. "We propose a new partnership. Earth will share our innovations, cultural vitality, and adaptability. In exchange, we require equal standing and meaningful reforms within the Empire." Admiral Wilson stepped forward. "Your military tactics haven't changed in centuries. We can help you adapt to new threats. Your scientific progress has stalled," added Dr. Reed. "We can help you break through those barriers. Your cultural exchange has become stagnant. Professor Mike said. We can inject new ideas, new perspectives. The council chamber erupted in voices, some angry, many curious, some openly supportive. A younger council member from a distant world stood. High Chancellor, the humans speak truth we have long avoided. My world would welcome this partnership. Others joined in agreement. Lord Krath watched in disbelief as support for the humans grew. The High Chancellor studied the Earth delegation carefully. You came to us as subjects but speak as equals. We are equals. Ambassador Jane replied simply. Different, but equal. The galaxy faces challenges no single species can solve alone. The Empire's strength and humanity's adaptability together could forge a better future for all worlds. After hours of debate, the Council reached its decision. The High Chancellor stood before the Earth delegation. The Galactic Empire accepts Earth's proposal for partnership. A new Galactic Accord will be drafted, with humans as full and equal members. As the Earth delegation prepared to return home with news of their success, Admiral Wilson turned to Dr. Reed. They thought they were testing whether we deserved to join their empire, he said quietly. Dr. Reed smiled. But all along, we were testing whether their empire deserved to join with humanity. Ambassador Jane nodded, watching as imperial representatives from 100 worlds approached them, eager to establish direct relations with Earth. The greatest empires don't conquer, she said. They inspire. And humanity is about to inspire a galaxy.